Hey everybody, I'm Ivonix, and this is a Museum of Dubious Splendors. I'm really not entirely sure what exactly this game is about, but it looked whimsical, and I like whimsical games, so we'll give it a try. The following work is an adaptation of a collection of stories written by the Gujarati poet Mir Umar Hassan. These stories, entitled In Dubious Splendor, were written in 1962 for the Malwa Chronicle, but they were mangled and edited without the author's permission prior to their publication in serialized form. The collection became momentarily infamous as the subject of the first court case to arbitrate authorial ownership in independent India. Even today, despite countless restorative efforts by scholars, it cannot be said with any certainty that the text that we've used for this adaptation was the original as written by Umar Hassan. Well, how fascinating. Whoa. A little bit of a drag on the mouse there. This I can see where the name is coming from already. This does seem like a dubious splendor. I like, wow. Oh god, that scared me a little. I like the boats. And the purple rain. Prince would be proud. Leave or stay. Oh, and I used my scroll. Use my scroll wheel to do that. Stay. Oh, I can just pass right through everything, except for the door. Well, alright, doesn't seem to be anything else here, so let's leave. See what awaits us on the other side. Ah, Peter Gregory Cantor was a prolific traveler, the founder of the doctrine of the anthropologist and treasurer at the Royal Academy. Cantor was known to all civilized world as an authority on the peoples and customs of Hindustan. But even the all-knowing Cantor was bewildered by the apparatus, an object that he wrote parsimoniously about in his annals and later alluded to with deep regret in the journal that he maintained upon his return to England. The apparatus, as Cantor first described it in his book of travels, had no apparent purpose. It was a tubular object of indeterminate shape, found in the living spaces of the people of Danta, often small enough to be placed in an almirha. The apparatus seemed so commonplace to the people using it that Cantor could not ask what it was without crippling damage to his credibility as a member of the superior race as he believed himself to be. That it was man-made and not a creation of nature was but evident, and Cantor made specific mention of its artifice. But beyond that record, nothing else was written about its shape or material, its color or form, or its intended purpose or providence. Cantor was so startled by its presence that he did not even name it, and only called it the apparatus whenever he made scant mention of its presence in his annals. Okay. Wow, a lot of reading. It seems that his fascination with the object had not gone unnoticed, and in an act of spontaneous diplomacy to the Raja of Shaturvan, the province that Cantor was touring, presented him with one of the mysterious objects. But the gift only served to torment Cantor, who found the apparatus a constant reminder of his bewilderment and his failure as a man of knowledge, for he had never worked up the courage to ask what it was. Cantor kept the apparatus in his house in Wranglington, and made provisions in his will to have it displayed at this museum after his passing, hoping someone might shed light upon its mysteries, and to this day a replica of the apparatus can be found on display, waiting for someone to identify what Cantor never could. Okay. Colgate toothpaste. Well, it doesn't really say Colgate, but you know. And the door has disappeared behind us. Is this the apparatus that so tormented him? A tube of toothpaste? Cavity protection. Very important. Well, okay. It's raining through the ceiling. The repairman is not doing their job. I do not know. I don't know what those mean, unfortunately. Can I? Oh. I have to choose. I have to choose which door to go through. We'll go through the door on the left. Oh! Wrong button. Wrong thing. Come on. Leave. Every time I go through a door, am I gonna have to read something? Yes, apparently. In the land of Kutor, in the valley of Bitra, there lived a clan of giants. Theirs was a thriving community content to remain aloof from the other denizens of the world. And though the giants would on occasion trade with the gods or enslave tiny mortals, most of them rarely left the confines of the valley, for the giants were always occupied with grand celebrations. They celebrated every event with feasts and revelry, be it the occasion of a birth or a bath. Wow! Feast for a bath. It was during one such celebration upon the marriage of the great giant prince Bosho Sikandar and Princess Buni Begum that Boshete, the younger brother of Prince Bosho, commenced a tantrum that threatened to derail the venerable event. Boshete, having recently witnessed a mortal wedding, wished to have musicians aplenty for this marriage as well. In vain did the gathered guests try to explain to him that giants were not meant to play music, that their hands were not made for the delicate strumming of the sitar or oud, or for the dexterous movements of the tabla. In vain did they try to explain that only mortals could become musicians, for their tiny bodies could cradle the instruments with a care that the giants could never muster. Fascinating. But Boshete remained stoically seated, cheeks puffed and arms crossed, unmoved by the pleas around him. And so it was that the famous musicians from the mortal realm were called upon to play at the wedding of Bosho and Buni. The musicians arrived the next day, carried on the back of a giant. Sore from the journey and famished, they were invited to the nightly feast before commencing their performance. But with such unseen splendors of a giant's feast before them, the famished musicians could not help but stuff themselves to the brim. They ate until they were unable to talk and move, far less sing and play, and could not be roused from their slumber when called upon to entertain the giants who had gathered for the wedding. The wedding guests were furious at this insipidity of the musicians that they had gone to so much trouble to acquire, and Boshete called for the musicians to be punished. With giant jails too large to contain such puny creatures, the musicians were all thus imprisoned in a box that was lying about. In this box, retrieved long after the reign of giants had ended, that now edifies a room. Okay, it is this box, retrieved long after the reign of giants has ended, that now edifies a room at the museum. A cassette tape! How fitting for musicians to be imprisoned in a cassette tape, which, you know, that's where they play their music out of. Oh, that is marvelous. and the room it's wallpapered with roosters. Well, that's fun. I like the little surprise that comes after every story. It's fun. Oh, and there's a door right here. I'm wondering if I go back and forth between doors, if I'll end up like going in circles or anything like that. Or if I can go back to rooms I've already been in. Well, let's go through this door and see where this takes us. Oh! No story this time, but wow, that's fun. It's faucets everywhere. And more little boats. Dubious splendor indeed. Alright, let's try this one. When Daroji died and his funeral was completed, all that was left was for his lawyer Mehta to distribute the property as bequeathed in the will. The house was divided between the three sons and their families, and the rest of the property similarly dispatched to other relatives. Every tiny object from the cutlery to embroidered kurta, and even the table fan with the bent blades, were given to some member of the family, distant and close. With a carefully drafted note of personal import that Daroji had written prior to his passing. Such a meticulous distribution of his earthly acquisitions did not surprise Mehta, who, in Daroji, had found both a conscientious colleague and a lifelong friend. So it came as some surprise to everyone when he found an apparatus in Daroji's possession, of which no mention at all was made in the will. Try as he might, Mehta could not discern any use for the object. No one in the family had seen or ever heard of this quaint apparatus, and its purpose could not be fathomed, nor its materials identified. Its place of discovery was also surprising, for it was found on Daroji's deathbed, resting below his head in the moments prior to his death as if it were a possession of great value. Bewildered by this unexplained object, Mehta was only too glad to donate it to the museum, where it now resides. A pillow? A throw cushion? Okay. I guess they all slept without pillows then, in that part of the world. Oh, why is that one all boarded up? That's not good. Okay, I will take their word. Oh, what is that texture mishmash? I will take their word for it. And let's go through this door. Leave. Oh, once again, no story, but more faucets. Can I walk into the water? Yep. Oh, I was like, am I gonna fall in and there's gonna be like a hidden underwater room or something, but... Alrighty, let's try this one. Oh boy, this one's long. A long, long time ago, when the forests had ears and the sun was still a sparkle in Ofro's eye, Shonturmul, the god of seashells, found Grudal Beg, the thunder god, perched despondently upon the edge of the Himalayas. Ever eager to help, Shonturmul asked his fellow mortal what ailed him so. And Grudal Beg moaned in reply, "O Shontur, I cannot help but bemoan my sorry state. If only I had an extra pair of eyes at the back of my head, then I would not have to turn around to see what was behind me all the time." And Shonturmul, after careful thought, said, "There's only one craftsman in all known lokas who can build such a pair of eyes." "Who is this right?" demanded Grudal Beg, and Shonturmul replied, "He is called Ego and lives in the forest of Gundor." Possessed by an urge to have a pair of eyes attached to the back of his head, Grudal Beg journeyed to the mortal world. Here he disguised himself as a merchant and soon appeared at the doorstep of Ego's workshop. Inside, the master craftsman, surrounded by clocks and astrolabes, armillary spheres and sextants and devices even the god could not recognize. Ego appeared to be working assiduously and paid no heed to his visitor. "O Ego of the fabled hands," cried Grudal Beg the mendicant, "long have I said to myself, if only I had a pair of eyes at the back of my head. Will you not craft me one such pair? You shall have my heartfelt blessings in return." Ego replied without looking up, "I am busy, much too busy," and with that he refused to say any more. Grudal Beg returned to the forest next year, this time disguised as a pasha, with a retinue of armed and mustachioed guards. He reached the workshop and found Ego at his bench, as if no time had elapsed since the god had last been here in the guise of a mendicant. "O Ego of the fabled hands," growled Grudal Beg the pasha, "long have I said to myself, if only I had a pair of eyes at the back of my head. You shall craft me one such pair, or I shall have my guards throw you to the crocodiles." And still Ego, engrossed in his work, replied with a dismissive shake of his head, "I am busy, much too busy," and with that refused to say more. His patience wearing thin, Grudal Beg snapped himself into his natural form and reappeared at the workshop in all his godly glory, and still Ego would not deign to look up from the work that absorbed him so. "Ego!" thundered Grudal Beg in his voice like a boom of a cannon. "Long have I said to myself, if only I had a pair of eyes at the back of my head. I demand that you craft me one such pair immediately." And again the unheeding Ego replied, "Later, I will craft it later, for I am busy, much too busy." Defeated in his quest and bewildered by Ego's preoccupation, Grudal Beg demanded, "But what is it that absorbs you so? What are you building so assiduously? And Ego looked up with an alacrity, revealing an object cradled in his palm, and he declared, "Look, I am building the apparatus." Binoculars. And floating apples. Fascinating. All the apparatuses are different every time we hear about one. Oh, that's... that wallpaper is slightly unsettling. Let's go through this door. Don't know how many doors and rooms there are to go through. Little has been written of the legendary cobbler, Maharaj Thela Thalkot. It is of course known to all connoisseurs of the Thal history that Thalkot was the first of the 3 cobbler kings who ruled the kingdom of Gotrapada. What little we know with certainty about this reclusive king and his short but prosperous reign is to be found in the journal of Ibn Hamid, an Egyptian traveler who found welcome at the kingly court for several years. Of all the chapters that Hamid wrote about the reign of Thalkot, none is so remarkable as the story of the strange container and how the cobbler king created it. It is said, Ibn Hamid records, that long before Thalkot was the ruler of Gotorpada, He lived inside the belly of a giant camel and traveled the desert searching for water holes. One day when Thalcott was riding in his camel, his mount was attacked by desert wolves. These demonic creatures tore the throat of his camel, and Thalcott only survived because he had the presence of mind to turn himself into a tick and hide within the folds of fur of one of the wolves. Here he stayed ensconced until the creatures had eaten their fill of the camel and retired to sleep, snoring with contentment. With the danger now abated, Thalcott changed back to his usual cobbler self and retrieved as much as he could of the camel's hide from the remains that the wolves had not yet eaten. He then proceeded to sew the hide together to craft a container where he could store a record of his remarkable adventure, a record which he had written on sheets of paper thinner than air while he was hidden in the guise of a tick, and a record moreover of immense value, without which Thalcott knew it would be impossible for others to believe what had befallen his camel. He worked feverishly, afraid that the wolves might wake up any moment and eat him. And as the sun rose in the east, he finished his grisly task and left the site of his camel's massacre, with his container by his side, and after days of hard travel reached the safety of the city of Isfahan. This container that accompanied the venerable personage on the first of his great adventures is shown here at the museum. And what is it? It's just a leather briefcase. Oh, that's not too remarkable. I mean, here, this is where the dubious side of things comes into play. And I'm disappointed that the room is walled with elephants and not camels. Well, I really don't know how long this game is gonna go on, but we'll try just we'll go through like just, I don't know, maybe two or three more. And see, I mean, if there's still more to do after that, we might call it good there, but... Let's see what's next. Alright, a long time ago, long before the wind was stretched across the hole in the sky, all gods and all demons lived in great harmony. Despite their differences, there was no conflict between them, and they met and celebrated every night, emptying countless pots of toddy from the 9 worlds and chewing the choicest of bang. And when the revelry was over, they would count the stars in solemn ritual and derive deep satisfaction from the fact that they invariably agreed upon the total number of stars that were in the sky. This contentment in the shared perusal of the night sky was the foundation of their peace and friendship. But Ajmo, the god of fingernails and a demigod and mischief maker, who dearly loved the battle in the tumult of war, could not be content with such insipid peace. It irked him to see these celebrations, and he yearned for a rousing skirmish. Ajmo's crafty mind soon concocted a devious plan. Begging leave to be excused from the nightly revels, he decamped to the remote realm of Barud, where he spent years crafting a magnificent yantra, a device that, with a brilliant explosion, could send a star shooting into the sky to join its infinite brethren. With this device in one hand, he took aim at the edge of the horizon, and with the press of a lever, let loose a shining ball of his own, such that it lodged in the very tip of Evenfall. That night, when the Celestials gathered in their revelry and proceeded in their ritualistic count, the demons counted the countless stars in the sky, but the gods counted countless stars, and then won! Because the star that Ajmo launched into the sky was so cunningly crafted that it could only be seen by the keen eyes of the gods, and the demons, who were characteristically nearsighted, could not see the northernmost star that had so recently been added to the firmament. This difference in count sowed a seed of such deep distrust and discord that the next morning the gods and demons saw the gods and demons bashing each other on the battlefield. Great engines of war were built, moats dug, and castles erected, spears sharpened, and scimitars dipped in the ceremonial blood of beetles, okay, as the armies clashed and roiled for centuries untold. The yantra that Ajmo had built now lay forgotten in his workshop amidst the excitement of war. And it was from here that the yantra was stolen by the mortals, who perceived in it a great capacity for violence. It has since been the lasting emblem of war and strife throughout all known history, and it is this scion of conflict that is displayed here at the museum. What is this scion of conflict? A gun! Of course. That one. And keys on the walls. That one actually makes perfect sense. Destroyed the peace between gods and demons by inventing the gun. God damn it, Ajmo. Oh, and these doors don't have signs next to them. That's interesting. Well, let's see. Oh! Oh, jeez. Oh, that is weird. That is trippy. That's just trippy. Oh! And there's no more doors! There are no more doors. Oh, that is so trippy. Butterflies on the walls, pencils floating everywhere. Oh, birds! Birds! I'm glad I looked up or I never would have noticed the birds. Okay. Woo! I'm guessing that's the end? Maybe? Could it be? Yep, that was the end. Supported by the India Foundation for the Arts. Well, that was fun. That was really fun. Yeah, definitely different sort of game there. But yeah, it was like I said from the get-go. Yeah, it was very whimsical and pretty fun read and exploration and all that. So yeah, that was a Museum of Dubious Splendor. Thanks for watching. Until next time, rock on.